G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoyed today's episode, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, let's get right into it. Posted by user ThrowRA Downsizing, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my fiancé that if he expects me to contribute 50-50, we have to make some serious lifestyle changes? My 26 female, fiancé 26 male, sat me down yesterday and gave me a long talk about how he feels like I don't contribute enough to the household, particularly in the financial sense. I was a bit caught off guard by this, but was willing to hear him out since he wasn't wrong. He makes a lot more than I do, and we've always split bills accordingly, which ends up being about 80% him. I asked what he wanted me to pay now, and he was adamant about it being 50-50. I asked if everything was okay with his job, or if he needed to take fewer hours, and he wouldn't answer me. I honestly wouldn't have gotten upset if there seemed like an actual reason behind it, but he just said that he's been thinking about it a lot, over and over, and every time I asked what brought him to this conclusion, what was going on, and eventually he just said, "This is how it's going to be, take it or leave it." Those exact words, in response to literally everything I said. Full shutdown, no explanations. I told him that was fine, I'll take it, and then asked if he'd made a Zillow account yet, or expected me to. He looked confused and asked why we would need a Zillow account. I explained there's no way that I can afford half rent on our current place, so we'll probably have to move into a one-bedroom apartment. He got mad and asked why I didn't have savings. I told him that I do, but I'm not paying rent out of my savings because that's a terrible and unsustainable idea. I also began to go over what our new food budget would be, our new entertainment budget, and that we'd probably have to sell the cars and get one less expensive one because I can't afford half the payments on an Audi and a Land Rover. Then I explained that date nights would probably have to be reduced too, and we could still do like Buffalo Wild Wings or something, but I preferred Thursday nights because you get 2 orders of boneless wings for 1. Basically, if he wants me to pay half, we're living within my means, not his anymore. He kind of agreed to it, but since then, he's been incredibly angry. He's not saying or doing anything, but it's like he's walking around the house in this cloud of pissed off. I sent him 6 Zillow listings, all of which he's called uninhabitable for various reasons. Some of which I think were valid, others I disagree with. He's now saying that I'm being unfair and manipulative, and that he tried to come to me with a serious concern about our relationship, and I'm making it impossible for him to talk to me and bulldozing over him. Am I the asshole? Alright, I've called it. That is textbook gaslighting right there. Those are all things that he's doing and continues to do to you, and yet he's saying that you're the one doing it to him. Piss off! No! The only compromise I can see in this situation is him clearly listing what he wants and a realistic depiction of how 50-50 looks like, given your current earning amount. Because you're being more than realistic with it, in that you're not going to dip into your savings until you have no money and are completely reliant on him. Like, what happens when you have 0 savings left? How does he expect the 50-50 to continue? Do you just have to spend 100% of your, earnings on rent at that point? The mental gymnastics is just astounding with this one, but not the arsehole OP. In the comments, LeaksG says, not the arsehole. Is he trying to break up with you and he wants you to pull the plug? That was my first thought. He wanted to be able to make her the bad guy by casting her as a materialistic gold digger. Now he's in a position where she accepted his ultimatum and he needs to admit that he's the materialistic one. Leave this asshole, because you're clearly in the right. I'm sorry you've been treated this way. My husband would never do this. He obviously doesn't genuinely care for you. At this point, OP should delete the Zillow app and download Tinder. Not the asshole at all, and you're making perfect sense in my mind. If he wants 50-50, he needs to understand that your income is the limiting agent in this reaction. It does sound like he has something else going on, and I would mentally prepare for him to call the wedding off. This sounds like he's coming up with reasons to get rid of you in his mind, but he does not want to come off as the bad guy. Spot on. Also, the way he shut down any type of communication and got pissed off when she accepted and made changes that should benefit them both, seeing as he is the one who made the complaint, is sketchy. I would hold off on this wedding. Can I ask what your salary and his salary are? Like, general numbers? A charitable take on his actions could be that he resents not having more money and is trying to inspire you to try to up your salary or change into a more lucrative promotion/career so you can be both living the high life. He might be imagining how great it would be to have 200% of his income instead of 120%. If that's the case, he's still going about it in a shite and douchey way. Personally, I agree with many other comments. Someone has insinuated that you're a gold digger and he was expecting you to break up with him, not problem solve. OP replies, I make around 35k a year. He makes around 120k a year. It's not like there's some magical be rich suddenly button that I can press. I'm a preschool teacher, and I don't have a college degree, and I certainly can't afford a college degree at this point without asking for help or taking out insane loans. Not the asshole. To me, it sounds like something has happened with his job, and he's not able to tell you yet, for whatever reason. I would try to have another calm chat about it with him, also showing him how much you're able to afford long term. Don't move forward with your plans of getting married until you both agree on your finances. OP says, I asked about the job, and he wouldn't give me a straight answer. The frustrating part is that I honestly do not mind downsizing, and if I found out tomorrow that he lost a job, I'd literally be fine selling what we have and living in a trailer together off of just my income. But this feels like some weird power play instead. If you can barely afford your basic living expenses, why the hell are you driving an Audi or Range? This is a classic example of lifestyle creep. If you barely make enough to contribute to rent, driving a luxury car is shameful. You're not the asshole, you're just a spoiled and unrealistic person. OP says, he gave me the Audi as a birthday present. It was not something that I was aware of until it was in the driveway with a big pink bow and confetti. Literally like a car commercial. He's always had a bit of a flair for the dramatic. Yeah, OP, we can tell. Update. Hi everyone, this got way bigger than intended, so I figured a follow-up was owed. So last time I posted was Monday. Monday as a whole was spent just sorting through what I felt and what to do next. There was a lot of silence and a lot of anger and a lot of Reddit advice, some of which I found very insightful, some of which was less so. Also, some people think I made this up as a part of a viral marketing sponsorship between Buffalo Wild Wings, Audi, and Zillow, which honestly would solve the money problems if true, but alas, is not the case. On Tuesday, after I got home from work, I sort of just walked up to him to the elliptical and explained as calmly as I could that I had questions, and if he actually wanted to marry me, he needed to be willing to answer them. I asked if he thought that I was a gold digger, yes or no. He said yes. I told him I wasn't willing to be in a relationship where I have to prove myself by sacrificing any sort of stability, and that led to a bit of a screaming match, and eventually a confession. So it turns out we cannot afford anything we have right now. We are in serious credit card debt, the cars are both on the verge of being repossessed, and I didn't know about any of this. He's been cutting corners on actual necessities, including psychiatric medication. That, in combination with some comments from his family, led him to some pretty dark places. My fiancé had a full breakdown and apologized for calling me a gold digger, which was nice to hear, but this whole thing made me pretty shaken up. I went to stay with a friend for a little bit. Yesterday, my fiancé and I did in fact go out to Buffalo Wild Wings and get the 2-for-1 boneless. We talked a lot. I'm still writing fiancé for now, and I really hope we can work through all of this. We talked about how to sell the cars. We don't particularly have a choice at this point, and about my income, his income, and the sort of life that we want to have. If we do stay together, we'll be changing how we live a lot. We need to get out of debt. We need to get on our feet. I know some people are going to say that I'm being dumb for not immediately dropping all contact and giving up on the relationship, but I can't do that. I can't look at the guy that I love, who went off his meds to try and make a good life for me, and think he's not worth sticking around for, at least to try. I don't know what the future looks like at all anymore though, and the wedding is very postponed at the moment. Sorry this wasn't a more fun update. In the comments, OP, has he come clean about what got you guys so deep in the hole? For it to get to the brink that it did, lifts more red flags in the air. He could be coping with an addiction problem or something else that could destroy your life. You have got to figure this out ASAP. Please don't make any wedding plans. This is not the man that you wanted to marry. And OP replies, he has. It's not gambling or drugs like a lot of people are saying. It's an addiction to nice things. He's got a lot of financial hang-ups and comes from a family that replaced love with money. So he got it in his head that the only way to show love was to provide a very fancy sort of lifestyle, which was way over the budget for us. It's going to be a hard pill to swallow, cutting back on everything, but it's what has to happen. I didn't write everything out in this post, but we did go over how the debt got this bad, and I'm currently aware of pretty much everything. There are some accounts I still need to look at this weekend, but for the most part, it's all above board at this point. We're definitely looking at the relationship, and I'm going to be taking a much more active role in life planning if we do continue. The wedding is on pause for an unknown amount of time. I'm already looking into places I can afford, and will probably end up renting a trailer. And no, I'm not lying for him. I told him point blank that hiding this stuff is what got us into this mess, and he's not going to be able to keep it under wraps if he wants to stay with me. We need to be upfront about our financial situation, whether he's embarrassed or not. I think that with some hard work, we'll both end up in a better position. We need to get out of debt, and I'm taking the reins a bit since he's never lived frugally before. But if all goes well, we'll get through this. I don't plan to leave if he sticks to what we're talking about and actually takes steps forward. I love this man, and I'll fight for what we have. If he won't fix things, won't listen, and continues to disrespect me, I'm gone. But I genuinely believe we will get through this. I know he can do better, and I believe he wants to. Now he has to prove it. Another commenter says, don't gloss over the comments from family. If you marry him, you're marrying them too. If they're generally toxic to his mental health, you need to talk about whether no contact is necessary. If not, he has some serious repair work to do to fix the impression they have of you, or has to take on the job of shielding you from their BS. And OP says, his family doesn't like me for a number of reasons. They don't like that I don't have a college degree, they don't like that I grew up low income or went to public school, and they don't approve at all of the fact that I'm religious. His mother in particular has called me a hick, a redneck, and several other things that I won't put down here. Up until this point though, he's been pretty good about defending me. Smacksaw says, when I saw their incomes, and he had a Land Rover and an Audi, I was thinking they must be in a low cost of living area, because after taxes in a normal cost of living area, he can't have anything left. Housing for $4K and cars for $2K leaves him $0K after taxes. Yeah, those cars and his salary did not add up. Some commenters were speculating about drugs or gambling, but just indulging tastes like that could account for all of the missing money. Him being the sort of person to emulate, surprise, new car is a gift, commercials, I was honestly a bit taken aback by those comments. What got you guys so deep in the hole seemed pretty obvious to me. If he doesn't become more transparent with OP about his finances and where he's spending the money, I do hope OP gets to walk away, particularly with the way his family looks down at her. And I'm chuckling at all the ad accusations, and OP wishing she could monetize that to solve her money problems though. This comment is brought to you by NordVPN. Just kidding, this is not sponsored. Our next post is by user SuccessfulLeak96, titled, my 32 male, girlfriend 29 female is upset with me because I don't do 50% of the housework. How do we find a reasonable compromise? When we first met, she made it fairly clear that she expected me, as a man, to be a provider, and as we continued dating for a while, her expectations were in line with me, assuming a very traditional gender role. I was fine with this. I've built a fairly successful career and pay roughly 90% of our combined communal bills on a $320K salary while she makes $40K. I do all the maintenance for our cars, the boats, and all the yard work. It's been about 2 years of living together, and up until now I felt that things were going well. She has recently started complaining that I'm not carrying my weight around the house. I don't do any of the cooking, do very little of the cleaning, and don't do the laundry. I felt our division of labor was fairly well established. I do all the traditional male work and pay the bills, and she maintains the homestead. But if I still have to do half the housework while almost entirely carrying the financial burden and the yard work, then her contribution would be far less than mine. I've also mentioned that when we have kids, I would prefer to have them homeschooled since she's going to be a stay-at-home mum anyway. She wasn't very receptive to the idea, since she wants to have daytime hobbies while she's still a stay-at-home mum. This didn't make any sense to me. Stay-at-home doesn't imply using the free time to pursue hobbies. It's meant to tend to the house and the kids. Edit, this keeps being asked, so I'll answer. I work almost 70 hours a week, and she works around 25. I've literally started having panic attacks between the demands at work and getting home to being antagonized. I've had to pull over to the side of the road several times in the last month. So if that's the case then, OP, it sounds like this dynamic isn't working for you two, and it's not going to work if you keep pushing it. You might end up having a full-on psychiatric episode where you have to be involuntarily admitted because the stress is going to just do that to you. I understand from your perspective how you're like, well, she's not holding up her end of the bargain, and how can she assume that I keep doing this 70 hours a week and then do even more at home, and she's only doing 25, and the kids are going to be at school, so she has all this free time and no stress? This seems like a time where you go to counseling or something and have a reasonable discussion of where you can meet in the middle with this. Perhaps you cut your hours down at work so that we don't get a cats in the cradle with the silver spoon moment where you're working all the time and you don't have enough time to be a father to your kids. I think both of you are being unreasonable in this situation, and if it continues to go down the road that it does, you guys are not going to end up together. You're going to end up divorced and sad. In the comments, Rika77 says, her being a stay-at-home mom shouldn't be the only reason for you to decide on homeschooling. Both of you should come together to make an educated decision about homeschooling. A decision that should be about what's best for the kids, and not about how much you want your wife to stay in the house and have no life of her own. She's allowed to have a personal life, hobbies of her own. Unlike you, a stay-at-home mom doesn't have fixed hours. It's not free time. If your kids get sick in the middle of the night, who do you think will be expected to wake up to tend to them? That being said, you should help around the house whenever you can. However, if she's expecting you to take over a bigger portion of the housework, talk it out with her. You guys are not yet married. If you have concerns about finances, call it off before it's too late. Homeschooling is a skill set, and not everyone can do it. A reasonable division of labor is what you both agree is a reasonable division of labor. If she's not happy with it, you'll need to have some good quality conversation about what you each expect and what you're each willing to take on. You're making a lot of assumptions about what it means for her to have a traditional gender role, and it sounds like she's making different assumptions. Please, please, have these conversations before you have kids. You seem to be missing the point that homeschooling children is a full-time job. Not to mention before that, taking care of babies and young children is 2 or 3 full-time jobs. You will have to pick up more or all of the housework if you're expecting her to do all of the childcare. And then when she finally has a chance for a break when the kids are old enough for school, you're like, nah, you don't need any time to yourself. Everybody needs a little free time, and you need a little reality check. Info. Who owns the home? You or joint, and does she work part-time? OP says, I own the house and she works part-time. So she only works part-time but can't finish house stuff and all the other time she's free. What does she do all day? It sounds like she's taking advantage of your salary and kindness as is, but is now pushing for more. If you let it go now, you're in for a rough end to things if you get married. Update. The last 48 hours have been really eventful, and while I'm still processing all that's happened, I figured posting would help me gain some mental clarity. The night after posting here, I decided to just have a frank discussion with her and figure out how we can divide our responsibilities fairly. I first laid out the math. I work roughly 70-hour weeks and have an hour commute 6 days a week. Another hour spent on getting ready for work, and another hour is spent at the gym or jogging. I typically then spend 3 to 4 hours on average per weekend working on outdoor projects or indoor repairs. Some weekends are more eventful than others, but I felt this was a fair estimate. I explained that this leaves me with an average of less than 3 hours a day to just live. As she already knows, most days I wake up, get ready for work, leave, and within an hour of getting back, I head to bed. I'm not a messy person, and I generally pick up after myself. Since I'm barely home, if I start doing 50% of the housework, I'd practically be cleaning up after her and her 2 dogs. She was resolute about having me contribute 50% to the housework and kept mentioning the idea of me doing less housework made her uncomfortable. Eventually, we settled at just having a maid come in twice a week. We'd been drinking while having this discussion and continued after we decided on the maid. We were quite a bit more drunk when she mentioned for the first time ever that she had around $15,000 in credit card debt from before we met that she wanted me to clear up before we got married. It kind of just hit me like lightning at this point. This relationship makes life easier for her, but makes life harder for me. Before we met, I was content in my apartment 5 to 10 minutes walking distance from work with my 2015 Corolla and basic furniture. Since then, I've bought a house that she wanted, near the water, which I'm not a fan of. A boat that she wanted, with a pool that I didn't want, thousands spent on furniture she wanted, and a BMW I didn't want. I even got her a job at my company so she could earn as much as she did before, but only work 25-hour weeks. When we woke up yesterday, I called off work, and I just told her that this relationship wasn't going to work. I just explained to her that my life wasn't getting any easier or happier, just the opposite. She was really keen on arguing, and eventually she even said she no longer wanted the maid, but I really didn't budge. She left around noon with her dogs, and I assume she went to her parents' house since I started getting calls from them. I didn't really have the energy to respond, so I just ignored them. I'm not exactly sure when she'll do so, but I hope she'll be able to collect her things in the next few weeks. She can keep working at my company for a couple of more months until she finds something more suitable. In the comments, Actual Aardvark says, be very careful in the work situation. If you hired her because you were dating her, the job started with a conflict of interest. If you let her go because you broke up, that would be seen as a retaliation for a relationship gone sour, and she'll have a lawsuit against you. Her employment shouldn't be based off of your relationship status. OP says, thanks for the heads up. I occasionally work with a contract lawyer. I'll reach out to him and figure out the best path forward. Their advice may be that you don't take any office action as it pertains to her keeping her job. You have a third party present during any interactions. You keep it 100% professional at work. Basically, she needs to want to leave on her own accord. Wow, she had so much and still wanted more? You dodged a bullet. Every time I see one of these people, it's the same, where they're already way over the line of what's fair, but want to keep asking for more accommodations. Remember that story from a girlfriend whose boyfriend wanted the poster to pay his fees for terminating his lease so he could move in and pay no rent at her home? Just insane greed. I'm relieved by this update. My dad did way more house and kid work than my mom. She worked crazy hours and made 3 times his salary. He worked full-time and had a commute, but he handled all my pickups, activities, events, and playdates up until I got my driver's license. He packed every lunch that I ever ate. He did 100% of grocery shopping and did until last year when he was no longer allowed to drive, as he had a stroke. He has washed every dirty dish ever made in any house. Home, on vacation, when they visit my home, etc., from 1967 to present. He did every load of laundry from 1986, when I showed up, until my mum retired in 2009. My mother has never touched a bag of trash. It worked for them. Dad never bished once. No relationship is 50-50 when talking apple to apples. The question is about the relationship as a whole over years of time. Your dad sounds like a great guy. Thanks, he is. Best dad ever. He's different now, mid-level dementia, so I find ways to take care of him despite being 36. I get his help shopping for home maintenance items that I don't need help with. I buy cheap, complicated build-it-yourself furniture online and have him come over to help me assemble it and then leave it outside for free when he heads home. I ask him to go shopping with me because I can't carry it all, just to get him out of the house. I got injured a few months ago. I've been having him come over to take out my trash. I was feeling so guilty, but my mum says he just gushes about being able to help me. So I can take it out myself now, but I save all my Amazon boxes and have him stop by once a week because my knee hurts. He did a great job as dad. Time for me to do a great job as a kid. The crazy thing is, what makes him happy is just getting to be an awesome dad and do my chores for me. Yeah, I am tearing up a bit. Fat Daddy 21 says, house cleaner 2 times a week for a 2-person household, one of whom is only home for 3 hours a day? Just how messy are those dogs? This stuck out to me too. We have a cleaner come every 2 weeks, and it still feels like the height of luxury. Same, it's an absolute luxury to be able to pay for a cleaner. Before, it'd be 3 to 4 hours every weekend, and we generally left the bathrooms way too long between cleans. Now it's £45 per fortnight, so £22.50 per week. I value my free time and the reduced stress of having a clean house way more than that. Also, honorable mention, a robot vacuum that runs itself 3 times per week. Total game changer when you have a fluffy cat. It was night and day for how clean the house was. Someone's gonna wake up with a big old case of, I just threw a great life away. Pretty nuts he changed his whole lifestyle for her, but it would never be enough. Yeah, 25 hours of work, a house, cars, a rich partner who isn't around much to worry about. What housework was there for just the 2 of them? One who isn't there much. So much that she was overwhelmed by the work? How could she have kids at all? He's lucky he got out. Once kids got there, he'd be paying a full-time nanny and likely huge expenses since she'd spend for all the best. Imagine how someone like her would act and spend once she was plugged into the mummy/parent network and then want to show off and feel better than everyone else. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.